Hey FFR listeners, this is the producer Rob speaking. It's that time of year when everyone starts to think about the important things in life, like our taxes. Did you know that a donation to Feminist Frequency is actually tax deductible? If you have a few bucks a month to spare, head on over to patreon.com/femfreak, FEMFREQ. Help us out, but also help yourself to all the great exclusive content that's available only to people who are signed up on our Patreon.
Bisexuals were influenced by Disney's now infamous gay agenda, thanks to the character of Li Shang.
He's kind of an iconic verse.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio presents Machos Fully Loaded. I haven't really put a lot of salt and pepper on that in a few episodes, and I thought I'd give it a go.
Making up for lost time.
Yeah. This is the podcast that asks you to be critical of the media you love, and this is the season where we're investigating masculinity in movies and TV. I'm Kat Spada.
And I'm AC Lamberty. And this week, here's what Kat wrote verbatim for me to read as the introduction to this episode. This week, the hunks we're drawn to are all about the D, 2D, 3D, and 4K Ultra HD, as we reminisce about some of the animated machos we've loved from cartoons and comics. I mean, hello, talk about a copywriter.
Look, if you want puns, if you want the D in your puns, you cut. This is who you call. Who you gonna call?
Cat Spada. I mean, it's not wrong though. We're talking about the D today.
Monsters.
100% pure adrenaline.
Weapons.
Your move, creep.
Dominance.
Pain don't hurt.
Machos.
The only place you're gonna go is the hospital.
I will be right back.
We're talking about some cartoon machos, and this was partially inspired. I think when we were talking about machos who are daddies, the Homer Simpson of it all.
We will not be talking about.
No.
I don't think.
Although I rewatched recently the episode where Bart gets a big brother mentor, and Homer gets jealous, so he goes in to become a big brother mentor, and they're like, reason for volunteering? And his brain goes, don't say revenge, don't say revenge. Then he's like, revenge. And it's a pretty good macho episode. But
the thing about cartoons is that they can be so funny.
So AC, I feel like I'm getting to know you through our friendship and through this podcast and what you dig and what you don't dig. And like, you're not a superheroes guy. But
I'm a
that
hater. I'm also a bitch.
But it doesn't mean you aren't no nerd. Like, that's the thing.
That's
is
true.
Like,
Yeah.
You are a
Right.
film nerd. But like, I would love to know, like, did you watch cartoons? Like, is it something you watched as a kid? Is it something you ever seek out now? Which of the Pinocchios did you watch last year?
Yeah. I gotta say, animation is a really big blind spot for me. It's not something that I seek out a ton, but was definitely a huge part of my media consumption as a kid. I think mostly like the Cartoon Network family of products was what I was into. So
what is that, your Phineas and Ferb?
That's Disney Channel, my dear. I'm thinking like The Misadventures of Flapjack. Ever heard of it?
No, I have
Adventure
not.
Time.
Yes,
Chowder,
I'm familiar.
That kind of era of like
Weirdo.
weird, like early millennials getting into having their own shows, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What about you?
I watched cartoons. I watched The Simpsons, of course. I watched your X-Men, the animated series in my childhood. And Ren and Stimpy was like part of my youth as well. And then I completely bought into the myth that like cartoons are for children only. So when I got to be a little bit, too cool for 7th grade, Pepper Ann style, I was like, that's for babies. I'm watching I'm going to the art house theater with my friends to see like Persuasion.
Oh my god.
I wouldn't watch a cartoon. And then
She's just like me for real.
so then my first job, like my first full-time job was at an animation studio.
Love it.
And I got this job and the boss was like, it's okay, like you want to work in film, but like you can catch up on animation. So I was like, okay, I need to watch everything that came out ever since I stopped being interested in cartoons, like starting with Monsters, Inc.
Wow. Oh my god, that's a huge backlog.
It really was. And I binged so many of them. And yeah, some of them were real bad and some of them were incredible. And then it was like, oh, doy, it's a medium, not a genre. Like, yeah,
totally. That's like, or even when I was prepping kind of the stuff I wanted to talk about for this episode, I was like, oh, it's a format, not a genre, and I had to keep reminding myself that. It's interesting as a lens, though. Animation as a medium.
And I'm curious about the history of like, especially when we get into some of the shows we'll be talking about when it gets to your section, but like South Park came out when I was in 4th grade and they were in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And that was a huge cultural moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, it was everything people were teachers were talking about it. Like, you know, did your parents let you watch South Park? The kids were so bad. They had swears. Family Guy was happening right after that. And like, those were all definitely part of like everybody's like the monoculture as much as it can exist, you know, these days. But like, were there all ages or like adult cartoons that were popular and on TV before that? Probably, but it does feel like that was a big shift.
Totally. And even you saying they're part of the monoculture, obviously true, but like I remember in my youth associating adult animation with men, like on the whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think is very similar to like video games or other kind of non-traditional entertainment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it was this sort of it's everything we're talking about is on a dorm room poster.
I tell you, that is a great merch opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Posters, hell yeah.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think now of like adult animation that is geared towards a female audience or just like all audiences, and obviously Daria comes to mind, which is from those days, but like next thing I can think of is Tuca and Birdie.
Yeah, I had this exact same thought. I was going to say BoJack Horseman. I think you could consider, you know, kind of everybody.
Yeah,
I think they do a pretty good job with that. I don't know. I like that show. Is that controversial?
Not to me. I thought it.
I like it. Yeah.
Recently reminiscing about when she gains weight after going on antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I was like, and they just keep her character design slightly different for the next like 2 seasons.
This is so like tabloid language of me, but like, who's doing this? Like, nobody's doing it like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's great.
I feel like also just bringing it back to last week's Patreon about pop culture our dads were into. My dad stayed loving Family Guy.
Oh my god, he was the Family Guy.
He was the Family Guy.
Wow.
But like that was very
stayed loving.
It was very reliable. Like I definitely, you know, I watched it in middle school, high school, you know, it would come and go. Like there would be periods of time of like, oh, you know, that Family Guy episode. But like for years, just like, yeah, if there was a Family Guy rerun on, it was on in some TV in the house.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, again, similarities. I feel like my access to like cool guy adult animation was definitely my dad. Like the shows that I will be talking about are stuff that we bonded over. And even feature films, like I see animated movies with my dad a lot.
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda, I got a shout. I was considering talking about it but special shout out. Love that movie. Something my dad and I saw and just like wept at the same time watching it. It's great.
The Jack Blackification of your media consumption.
He is important to me and my family. Is what I'll say.
I will send to you probably my favorite picture ever of my father. He's wearing his typical like later in life uniform, which was Crocs and a polar fleece sweater.
Slay.
And like some, I want to say convertible khakis, like that you could zip off at the knee. But they weren't.
That.
They always were fully zipped. And he was just walking through the movie theater and saw the standee for Big Hero 6.
Oh my God. That's dad candy.
Loved it and took a picture holding its hand. And it's my fave. And also I consider talking about Big Hero 6 today, even though there's like not.
I love that movie.
It's so good.
Underrated, big time.
Did you see the new Baymax shorts that came out?
I haven't. Are they cute and worth watching?
Well, don't worry. They got headlines because like there's an episode about menstruation and like a guy with like a trans flag on his shirt is like, this is the product I like. And everyone was like, Baymax too woke.
I didn't tell you that I had a cameo in the new Baymax show. That was me. Yeah, kind of huge win for trans representation.
It's important, I think, to wear the trans flag on your shirt when you're going to the pharmacy.
I'm like crying. Say that. Say that. Wait, before we get into your section. Oh, wait. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Just they made like a Big Hero 6 like show that's like not great, but the shorts are good and highly recommend.
Very cute. I love that flick. My question for you before we get into your section, did you have any formative cartoon crushes in your media as a youth?
Baby, didn't I? So that's the thing. Like, I was kind of surprised at first when I sat down to like think about cartoon machos. I was like, man, I don't fucking know anything about cartoons. I don't know what to. Then it was like, no, I know a lot about cartoons. Like, I know a huge amount, especially from having like those years when I did work in animation, changed my perspective, and I have since been way more open to watching stuff that I otherwise might not have.
Okay. And
like, sorry listeners, like, will I scoff at a Disney adult? Yes. I will. I have a very low tolerance for Disneyland.
Same.
I can go up to twice a decade. I think that's where I've done the math. And growing up, like, I've always pretty much lived in LA. So there's always like somebody's coming to town and they've never been here and they're going to go to Disneyland for the first time and let's all go. And first of all, who has that kind of cash?
Exactly. Exactly.
And although you will see me there this summer because I'm going to see the Captain America musical. So.
What the fuck? I feel like that needs to be a Patreon because I don't know what you're talking about and it sounds scary.
I will tell you about it in the Patreon. Actually, we have several unhinged things to talk about in the Patreon today.
Anyway.
But like, absolutely. Early crushes. I mean, the foxiest of them all, Robin Hood. From the 1973 Disney movie. And I watched a little bit of that
from
today.
1973?
Isn't that nuts?
That is crazy.
I mean, I really did think as a child that everything I saw was new.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the time I met Larry Hagman on an airplane when I was like 7. And I had to ask my dad, I was like, why is the astronaut from I Dream of Jeannie a grandpa all of a sudden? And he was like,
and that's how you learned about like the circle of life.
Yeah, that's how I learned about syndication. You're never too young for a child to learn about it. And I actually talked to Larry Hagman and told him how much I loved I Dream of Jeannie, and he was the best. He was so cute about it.
That is so cute. That's very sweet. Wow.
But yeah, like Robin Hood, although I realized I think that because Robin Hood Men in Tights, the Mel Brooks movie, came out in 1990 something, I did like conflate like how sexual Robin Hood was because I was like, oh, remember how in Robin Hood, like Maid Marian wears like a chastity belt because like she's gonna have sex with Robin Hood, and then I think I kind of thought that happened in the cartoon.
Yeah, you can buy one at the gift shop.
Yeah. So.
Well, I feel
yeah.
whenever I think of or see the like lists of hottest cartoon characters,
Tell me.
Robin Hood, the Fox version,
Yeah,
is always on it, always.
And I think part of that is a lot of it is the voice, right? Like that's what we're dealing with here. But there's like a Shakespearean actor doing this like very rich vocal performance. And I did watch part of it again today, and I was like, several kinks were introduced to children in this movie because Nottingham or whatever, like the lion who's like the king. I like, why can't I remember the plot of Robin Hood? He's doing a lot of like thumb sucking and a lot of like mommy baby talk in this as well. And so I think when you see like Robin Hood being like, me, I'm just a carefree casual guy. And then there's also like this sort of like baby play situation happening. I'm like, boy, this is rich. This is rich.
Rich text. Oh my God. I'll have to revisit.
Wait, what about you though? Any early?
I definitely think Sully for Monsters Inc.
Get out of here. I love that.
Telling.
I could have guessed.
Yeah. Recently, this is just like, I'm thinking of just like hot images I've seen. Do you remember when Zootopia came out?
Oh, yeah.
And there was that image of the hot tiger on the bus going around?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's doing it for me in a way that I didn't expect. Yeah, I mean, like, I like a bear. What can I say? Literally, spiritually. Yeah.
And I, have historically loved a twunk. So that's why I also think it's important to give a shout out to Tuxedo Mask.
Oh my God. MASC.
He just had this, he'd show up. He was so mysterious. He'd show up with a cape and a mask and a robe and a fucking tuxedo
even.
Yeah. What else do you need as advertised? And that was one of those where I didn't even watch enough Sailor Moon to like get that he was also this other character. I was just like, Tuxedo Mask is here. He's so debonair.
I've never seen an episode of Sailor Moon ever. I feel like they are probably machos in their own right. But is Tuxedo Mask a major part of the show?
I could not tell you. I honestly just remember kind of, that was at the age where it was like, I want to know how to draw him in my notebook.
Yes.
That's about as far into the lore as I got.
You're real for that. You're really real for that.
But I have some fucking classic 90s Disney machos to talk about.
Let's go.
And I was looking through some wikia.disneyprince.com site. And it was, first of all, hilarious. Like, I thought, I'm going to do just an overall look at all the Disney princes. And then I was like, don't care.
Yeah. So much forgettability in that cohort.
Yeah, it's the epitome of she's Barbie, she's everything, he's just Ken.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
Even on the dedicated fan wiki, they were like, Prince Eric has black hair. That was part of his character description.
You ain't ever lie. Okay, before you continue though, this is interesting. Yeah. I'm fermenting on something with the shows I'm going to talk about, but it's I feel like portrayals of men in animated film and TV is either it's literally everything or nothing. It's you have such a distinct tropey personality, or you are Eric and you have black hair. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if that holds up as you.
Yeah, there's definitely some there's extremes, and then there's just what can you project onto this handsome nothing.
Yeah, right.
So apparently 1989 to 1999 was the Disney Renaissance, according to Wikipedia. I'll cite that source. And And
gorgeous time period.
In this era, I mean, let me tell you, like, I really am the perfect age to have, like, been exposed to all of these. I remember, I mean, I had Little Mermaid bed sheets and stuff like that. But in 1991, we got a great pair of portrayals of toxic masculinity for children in Beauty and the Beast. And I'm not just talking about the Beast and then the Beast in human form, who I guess has a name. I think it's like Prince Adam. Who cares? Prince
It's
what?
like Brandon.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So basically, like, what's great is when you Google like The Beast 1991, you get a lot of like BuzzFeed listicles that are like 8 times I was disappointed by the Beast in human form.
I mean, I agree. I would add the Beast to my kind of canon of large animated figures that are hot to me. So
he's a very well-designed character. Like, he has, I mean, that movie, you know, I'm not going to rewatch that movie anytime soon, but like, it has such good characterizations of all of like the people who've been turned into the household objects.
yeah.
The Beast is like, he's supposed to be horrifying, and he's definitely compelling to look at. I mean, he looks like a character of legend, like a Minotaur or something, you know, like, it's not like you're seeing some like Cthulhu, like, you know, biblically accurate angel.
Yes.
Like, he's something that you would look at and be like, oh my God, look at that beast, you know, like, not just, oh no, the creature from the Black Lagoon, I'm afraid, you know?
Yeah.
And then in human form, he's like a slender ginger, which is also appealing to me. So, you know, good news for us all. And then, but let's just really get into the nitty gritty with Gaston.
Smash or pass before we go further?
Hard smash.
Thank you.
Gaston,
for speaking truth to power.
He is like, I don't have to have complicated feelings about my attraction to Gaston. He's so, yeah, he's disgusting, obviously, but
he's him though.
And
you're so real.
Thank you. I think I would describe Gaston as a meathead incel, because like, he's great when he's just being himself. When he's like trying to get Belle to be his trophy wife, I'm like, boy, move on. Like, you have other things you can be doing with your time.
For sure.
Truly, like, sorry, the best song of the entire movie is the song that he and his sycophant LeFou and his cronies
canonically gay.
Okay, so can you catch me up on this? Because I didn't watch the live action remake.
Neither did I.
But like, you're up on the discourse, right?
Yeah,
like,
in a very high level way. So it was like, oh my God, Disney has a canonically gay character in its next film. Isn't that amazing? And it was Josh Gad, right? Like, as LeFou.
Because Gaston is played by icon of my loins, Luke Evans.
Oh, maybe I should watch this. What am I saying? No, I shouldn't. I should watch that section of it.
Yeah, and then Gaston, right, is Josh Gad, who, like, I wouldn't put it past Josh Gad to be like, my character is canonically gay, and, like, no one told him to say that, you know?
So I can't tell if that's what happened, because that seems like a very likely possibility.
Yeah.
And he was just like, do you see when I go up on his shoulders in the musical number, I look really excited and, like, horny to be around a man? Or if it was like he's waving a pride flag or something. Okay, I actually need to real-time fact check.
Also, like, do you think he was talking about Olaf from Frozen?
Okay. That's very funny. When the movie came out, however, LeFou being quote-unquote openly gay simply meant that there was a brief shot of him dancing with a man in one of the features final scenes.
That's... Let me tell you.
What did we expect?
Let me tell you. That is like peak. That is pitch perfect. Like Disney, which, as we know, is the gay agenda. this podcast you cannot listen to in Florida currently because we're talking about Disney and we're saying gay.
We're on your freaking pirate radio. If it helps, though, Josh Gad is really mad about it.
Ugh. You know what it does? It does help. It helps the cause.
I'll put a link to the photo of him dancing with the man in the show notes.
Please. For anyone listening who may not know, Luke Evans, I feel like Luke Evans is an actor that like could barely exist in the 90s too. He's an out gay man. He plays masculine roles. He plays straight roles. He plays gay roles.
Very leading man.
Very leading man. He, of course, stars in Professor Marston and the Wonder Women, which is a fantastic movie about a polyamorous, bisexual BDSM trio based on the true story of the guy who invented Wonder Woman. So it's great. Check that out. But let's just I wish I could tell our editor to put the entire Guest On song in this episode. Obviously, it would not be allowed on YouTube if we did that. But there's just every lyric in this song is like the abstract for Machos Fully Loaded. There's no man in town as admired as you. You're everyone's favorite guy. Everyone's awed and inspired by you, and it's not very hard to see why. So it's like,
God, even you saying that, I'm like, this song bangs. I'm gonna re-listen.
So good. He's so insecure. Like, I think this is also crucial to an understanding of Gaston, is that like he needs to be told how macho he is.
Yeah.
And all the men around him are like, fuck yeah, you are. Like, it's like the Joe Rogan experience.
I was going to say, it's like when Gaston is with the boys, it's a little divide masculine, almost. And then when he's with Belle, it's like, wow, you're horrible. Like, you're so annoying.
But he's in his element when he's surrounded by other men. And that's like, that's actually like...
That's how it goes.
Yeah, like his masculinity is not for... I mean, I know that the female gaze doesn't mean the male gaze, but from women. Like, I know that it has a different definition than that. But Gaston is masculine for men.
Oh, for sure.
That's it. Like,
yeah.
But gosh, I mean, I pasted the lyrics in our show notes. So, like, please, if you see something that speaks to you, let spirit move you.
No one's neck is as incredibly thick as Gaston. I'm horny. It's great.
Yeah. And then, like, what's interesting, too, is I was thinking about, like, at more... Because I'm going to dive a little deeper into my next film. But, like, this is for children. This is our first exposure to, like, a textbook definition of like what are like of gender essentialism, basically. Like, what is it to be a boy? What is it to be a girl? You get it from your Barbies and your Kens, but also like in this, the fact that he's kind of gross, that he spits, and that he, you know, is saying he's brave, like all of that is just like all tied up in this description of what it is to be masculine, after we've just seen like Belle likes to read and she has like a basket of flowers, you know, she's very very feminine. And so I'm curious about that, like just how even little parts of this are so insidious. Like, I love to think that of a description of Gaston as like a comical character who is very masculine and very physical, and like that's interesting and fun and funny. But then like, is this part of why, as like a little girl, I was watching this and thinking like, oh, I would never spit on the ground.
Sure.
But a boy could do that. Like, what a weird thing.
And even like if you zoom out from that, I was thinking how, you know, up top we're both kind of like, oh, animation's not super our thing, it's not really something that we are experts in or seek out or whatever. And yet I could name probably every Disney princess film, every Pixar release, whatever. Like, it is so in the culture, so monoculture, so American too, I feel.
And when you look at what is successful in box office, or like this was a big thing during the pandemic, was that like, a family film could come out and you're going to buy 6 tickets because you're going to bring your nieces and nephews and everyone's going to go, and then you have to get snacks. But the model of like putting these things on streaming has been totally different, because who knows how many, like, I mean, this was actually something I should have looked into this, but I remember the Disney Vault being like a big thing.
Pre-streaming services with exclusivity rights, you know?
Yeah, and these are the movies that like kids want to watch over and over and over again. But the fact that like I haven't watched the movie Beauty and the Beast since I can't remember. I mean, childhood. I remember how all the songs go.
Yep.
And that's the real Disney
it's
magic.
Culture shaping. Yeah, Disney like becoming an indelible part of the American cultural experience is it's real, I feel.
Totally. And just like as a little point of transition. Now, I thought I was going to talk about the movie Lightyear today.
That's crazy, but
that was like fully. I actually had a nervous breakdown. Like, I started watching Lightyear, and a good 25 minutes into it, I was like, I'm sick. I'm ill.
You should have called me.
I should have. I had seen a headline that it was like one of last year's big box office disasters, and I think that it's still really difficult to gauge box office success compared to pre-pandemic. I don't think that the industry is the same. I appreciate that Keke Palmer is in this movie, but that's about as far as I got. But mostly I just remembered like Toy Story was probably the last movie the last like cartoon that came out when I was still like a kid who was into watching a new cartoon. When Toy Story 2 came out, I remember I was like babysitting my little cousin.
Wow.
And was like, I guess we have to watch Toy Story 2 because my little cousin wants to see it. Like, that was just enough of a puberty difference for me. But that was the first like computer animated feature film, and the Machos were there from the beginning of this advance of technology. King of all tools, Tim Allen voicing Buzz Lightyear and bringing himbo representation to infinity and beyond.
Whoa, that is a himbo research topic. Like
definitely.
Tim Allen as origins, that's huge. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
And like when I was thinking about then into like my teen years, I did love Daria, and Trent is this like love interest, but he's not like a macho. He's a sensitive kind of musician.
Soft boy-ish.
Total soft boy. Himbo of all himbos is JFK in Clone High, which is also from that era of MTV cartoons. But where I really found my passion, and like I was watching Lightyear, I started like having a panic attack because I was like, I don't know what to say about this movie. I don't know what to say about Buzz Lightyear. I really don't. I'm not connecting to it. So then I turned on Mulan because I love Mulan.
It's great.
I mean, first of all, we're on an unintentional journey through the Harvey Fierstein cinematic universe.
He and Patrick Swayze guide us. I mean, oh my God, what a fun double date that would be.
Actually, I mean, two expressions
maybe
of drag.
Someday.
Also, randomly, I got to go to the premiere of Mulan in 1998.
Shut up! That's crazy.
It was
your LA childhood is endlessly fascinating.
It is like I even think about that in terms of like, yes, Disney infiltrates every American childhood, but like my family's like the fancy restaurant we go to has like the table where Walt Disney used to sit.
Wait, the sandwich shelter?
Yeah. When like Pocahontas came out, like it would be somebody's birthday party to like go to the El Capitan and see it with like the performers and stuff.
Wow.
And Mulan, I read that they did the premiere at the Hollywood Bowl, just like kind of a big audience screening of this movie. because they had had recent disappointing box office performances of male-led films, Hercules and The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I kind of was like, those aren't movies that I did really watch as a kid. And is it because they had male leads and I wasn't being catered to by that? So that, I don't know, that's kind of like, just trying to put myself into like a place and time and think like, why didn't I go see Hercules? Like, was there some...
I'm surprised that neither of us thought to talk about that one more in depth for this episode.
Yeah.
Hercules is hot.
Yeah. Totally.
And honestly, if I had to like pick my top favorite Disney like animated movies, I think it would be up there.
Yeah.
With Mulan. Yeah.
But Mulan is like one of those movies that I don't know if it's because of that like strong memory of going to the premiere when I was a kid, or it's like the movie Moana, which obviously I only saw as an adult. It's a recent movie. I don't necessarily love that movie from top to bottom, but there's like one or two songs in there that can turn my day around. Like, they're just mood boosters. And Mulan is like perfect for that.
Agree.
So Mulan is played by Ming-Na Wen with a singing voice by Lea Salonga. Mulan is a young woman who masquerades as a man so that she can take her elderly father's place in the conscripted army. But a generation of bisexuals were influenced by Disney's now infamous gay agenda, thanks to the character of Li Shang, the military captain tasked with training Mulan and her fellow soldiers into fighting shape.
He is kind of an iconic verse.
Absolutely. I mean...
Yeah, I love that for him.
I love that for him. There's also like... Again, like I'm thinking about, of course I went to see Mulan, but it is such a masculine story. Like, it starts with her, like, not particularly being good at the effeminate presentation that she's supposed to do to, like, go meet the matchmaker. Oh, you're going to put makeup on. You're going to be graceful and do all these things. And then when she does end up with all the soldiers at the training camp, there's, like, this moment where we see Harvey Fierstein's character. And he's like spitting and snotting and punching people. And there's another soldier who's bald. So like maybe he's a monk in this like minor character's story. And he's like, hey, take a deep breath. Like, don't fight. Make a new friend. And I was like, that's like a portrayal of masculinity that I wouldn't expect to see. But I just, like, I really need to get into the casting on Li Shang because I'm kind of obsessed with it. What better pairing of actors? So he's voiced by openly gay actor B.D. Wong, and his singing is provided by openly Mormon Donny Osmond.
Two great tastes.
Wong is a lauded theater actor. His Broadway debut was starring in M. Butterfly as a man disguised as a woman, earning him the distinction of being the only actor in Broadway history to receive the Tony Award, Drama Desk Award, Outer Critics Circle Award, Clarence Derwent Award, and Theatre World Award for the same role.
Damn.
And he's beloved to me for his roles in Jurassic Park, The Father of the Bride, and Law & Order SVU.
Yeah. If
you're less familiar with his work and smoldering sex appeal, please watch the video he did for GQ. It is linked in the show notes. It's called B.D. Wong Teaches You How to Eat a Chicken Wing.
Oof.
Also, like, I swear to God, I heard on a podcast, and I could not find it, that somebody said that they went to, like, a New York gay elite party and saw him eating chicken wings while wearing, like, thigh-high, high-heeled boots.
Dream.
And I was like, did I make that up? Like, possible. But now if you search PD Wong Thigh Highs podcast, you're gonna get this, and that's nothing. So I don't know.
Great for our SEO.
I was like going to say Donny Osmond, like, noted homophobe. Then does the singing voice. Now here's the thing. Donny Osmond did like the Mormon church was very against like Prop 8 and gay marriage, and Donny Osmond was vocal along those lines.
Uh-huh.
But then like his personal website says like everyone can choose to be homosexual and they should feel free to become Mormon if they want. They just like can't be married or whatever.
Feel free to both be gay and Mormon.
Like, I don't know much about the Osmonds. I mean, this was another era, really. But then, like, his Wikipedia, I was reading, and it's like, oh, when he was on Dancing with the Stars, one of the judges said he was too, quote, airy-fairy in his performance. So then he kissed that male judge and, like, theatrically dipped him. And I'm thinking, I like, can't, I mean, am I going to watch the clip? No. I don't have time for facts.
But I like, what did he want out of that? Interesting. Okay.
And like, you know, so I guess what I've gathered about Donny Osmond is that like he had this squeaky clean reputation image in the 70s of like Donny and Marie, this like clean cut singing duo of brother and sister. Then he couldn't get roles because there was like nothing interesting about that.
Yeah.
His publicist like faked like a drug charge or something.
Whoa.
But then I feel like he just like, I don't really understand how then all of a sudden he's like back in the 90s and just he and Marie just did like an 11-year residency in Vegas. But
it feels also strange that he was the singing voice when BD Wong is literally in musicals.
Yeah. So I listened to an interview that BD Wong did in 2021 on the Lost Culturistas podcast. And I am going to link to that episode in the show notes because at around an hour 10 into this, it's a great episode, great interview with him. They talk about so many fantastic parts of his career. But they do specifically get into Mulan at that time in the, at that timestamp. And he doesn't like go into details, but he says he was fired. Like he was going to do the singing voice and they were like, we're bringing on Donny Osmond.
Whoa.
And the excuse that they gave him, or like the reasoning that they told him, was that his singing voice sounds more like you than your singing voice does.
That is so bizarre.
It's obviously bullshit, but like I can understand like, oh, we want someone whose singing voice matches the tone of your speaking voice. But like that's not what happened. Like they just, BD Wong wasn't a household name.
Right.
So they put Donny Osmond in. Like,
so strange.
It's so strange, and it's then like very embarrassing to me to say that one of Disney's best bangers of all time is sung by Donny Osmond.
Yeah, well,
but
here we are.
The training montage song "I'll Make a Man Out of You."
Oh,
AC. Like. I hope that when you were wearing your trans flag shirt to the pharmacy for that episode of Baymax, that you were like playing this on a boombox on your shoulder. Because I get so hype listening to this song.
Banger.
And like where the Gaston song has like a million descriptions of what makes Gaston so manly. This song, like, it really just is summed up in the, like, repeating chorus, which is, we must be swift as the coursing river, with all the force of a great typhoon, with all the strength of a raging fire, mysterious as the dark side of the moon. And in the background, just all the guys going, be a man. And it's like, fuck, yes.
So hard. It's so hard.
I love it. And it's like, they're talking about machos at war here. Like, it's not just how to be, they're not saying here's how to be a good man, here's how to be a good father, here's how to be a good husband, here's how to be a good civic fucking, member. They're saying, like, in order to be a good fighter, you have to be all of these things. And that is synonymous with being a man. And it's especially titillating because Mulan is there trying to pretend to be a man.
Yeah.
But then, like, let's get into the, as you said, the verse energy of Li Shang, which is Mulan, when she is pretending to be a man, goes by the name Ping. And people on the internet have taken, like, screenshots of the way that Li Shang looks at Ping and the way that Li Shang looks at Mulan after she's revealed to be a woman. And they're like, he looks at her the same way. Like, bisexuality confirmed.
Oh, I love it.
But Las Culturistas asked BD Wong specifically about this, and he said, you know, over the years, he'd said, oh, no, like, it's not that. He said he didn't know if he was being cowardly when he said that, or if it was just a different kind of understanding of things as times changed.
Mm-hmm.
In this 2021 interview, he said, yeah, absolutely, because fluidity is real.
Yeah.
And he also, I mean, I'm going to take BD Wong as like the expert on this. He was like, look, I'm not saying that Li Shang is like a gay man or a bisexual man. It's just that he had attraction to this person, and he remained having attraction to this person when their like expression of gender changed. And that doesn't have to like be a definition of anything. It's just fluidity, absolutely. And that's how life is now.
Completely. I love that.
Yeah.
That is such a true to life read on a children's film, which is also very funny to me.
Totally. I mean, it's a children's film, but like...
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty action.
It's very action heavy.
At points.
There's... The first time Li Shang is like introduced to Mulan, he takes his shirt off and she looks at him like, boing. And there is like this trope of a girl pretending to be a boy, and then they have to like skinny dip, or they're in a locker room or something like that happens in this movie, and her little dragon friend like bites one of the naked guy's butts so that she can like get away without being revealed to be a girl. And I was like, they're like talking about like naked men in this movie. Like, yeah, even just talking about the fact that like she's skinny dipping and she's like, oh, I don't want to see another naked man ever again, and then like a bunch of them run past, kind of escandalo.
Yeah, love that.
And finally, the climactic battle at the end of the movie, the day is won thanks to the power of drag.
Beautiful.
I just wanted to remind everyone that they, like, these central kind of fighters put on women's clothing so they can blend in. And I just thought that was like a great full circle, like, you know what they had to do?
Something that drag bands will take away from us.
Absolutely. And if I may say, that is mysterious as the dark side of the moon. That was them fighting the antagonists using their strength of secrecy as well. So,
I love that. The wiles.
Yeah. So
great
truly one of my all-time favorite machos of the cartoon persuasion.
Love it. So as we mentioned up top, I am not really an animation person. I'm not really a TV person. I barely watch TV series all the way through. I have probably watched maybe 7 in my entire life. That said, when I'm a fan, I'm a fucking fan. Like, I go deep. I've seen all the episodes. I do like annual rewatches of many of these 7 shows that I've seen. To add a further kind of kink to that, I really don't like adult animation.
Right.
I really don't care for it. It's not my thing. I have found more examples of adult animation that I don't like than I do like. This all said, 2 of my all-time favorite pieces of television, 2 of my perennial rewatches, are adult animation television series about men, Futurama and King of the Hill.
Excellent. Excellent.
Have you
choices.
seen either?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a completist on either, but I do really like King of the Hill. I love like that this show canonically deals with a narrow urethra and that we've seen Hank's tiny little butt.
It's the best.
And Futurama, like, that's one of those where I think it's a very rich show. Like, you can just grab one episode and be totally entertained, but I think it has a lot of like seasons long lore, and getting involved with the characters is rewarding.
Yeah, totally. For some context, these came out around the same time. So King of the Hill is a Mike Judge series that ran from 97 to 2010. And then Futurama is Matt Groening, also of The Simpsons, that ran from 1999 to 2013. So kind of in the same era. I think there's definitely a similar tonality to it. King of the Hill is about the life of Texan propane salesman Hank Hill and his family and his friends. As mentioned, iconically tiny butt, which is like an evergreen bit. And then Futurama is about a pizza delivery man, Fry, who is accidentally cryogenically frozen and wakes up 1,000 years in the future. Both share a lot of similarities, are very, like, again, very similar, kind of like bro-y comedy, and are both really political too in an interesting way. Like, both definitely speak to a particular American political landscape, which I find really interesting. Could be like an entire episode. But both, what's more important is that both are like about groups of primarily men in the United States, and I think they both treat their men the same way. Like, there's a kind of derision to it, like a kind of mocking that I find really interesting, but ultimately everybody's very lovable. It's almost celebrated, which I think most of the time is positive in both shows, honestly. And like, that's the impression I got when I was first watching them as a youth.
And King of the Hill is like very, like, them being a blue collar group is like very key to it. Futurama is interesting thinking about it in that context where like Fry is like a service industry worker, but he's surrounded by bureaucrats and fighters and scientists, but they're all kind of on the same playing field.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. And that, we talked a little bit about animation as a format or a technique rather than a genre. And thinking about that, when then, like, kind of picking apart King of the Hill and Futurama for this episode was really interesting, because I was like, why couldn't these be live action? Like, why could these just be live action comedies about men? Obviously, Futurama, there's like the whole future in space setting that would be, difficult, not possible. But King of the Hill could be a fucking Sean Baker limited series. You know what I mean?
I just watched a little bit of Letterkenny for the first time.
Oh yeah,
which is Canadian, but they're just like guys standing around talking like this.
Super, exactly. Yeah. Could easily be that. And when I was thinking about like animation, masculinity, these shows, like why this format? I think it's because animation lends itself so well to stereotyping, and I don't necessarily mean that negatively. I mean, there are definitely examples of that in both of these shows, but I think because of like the format's tendency to like give us broad stroke stereotypes, we get very distinct male characters who are not traditionally macho, which is very interesting to me. Like, it's an interesting form of like quote unquote diversity.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question on that, which is like the first thing that came to mind, and I can't remember the characters' names, but there's like a whole like cuckolding like through line in King of the Hill.
Essentially, yeah. With Dale and his wife, and then, John Redcorn, it's very strange. Like, everybody is such a trope, you know what I mean? Like, we talked about this kind of last week too, like the kind of bumbling dad trope that's hugely evident here. But Hank Hill in King of the Hill is, traditional conservative, kind of the smartest of all of the dumb guys that he associates with. Dale is a conspiracy theorist. Bill is kind of like heart of gold dumbass. Even in Futurama, everybody's very like trope, which I think is like fully an animation thing. Like, Fry is also kind of lovable dolt. Professor Farnsworth, we have literally a mad scientist. We have a kind of a crass, alcoholic macho with Bender and Futurama. And so in thinking about both of these, I was like, oh, these are just kind of high level, like sampler platters of different kind of stupid masculinities, which is fun. I don't know. It's fun to me.
My favorite Futurama joke is when Dr. Zoidberg, is it doctor or professor?
The doctor, the best character, my favorite.
When he's like trying on new outfits, like new exoskeletons, and one of them is like a leather daddy outfit with chaps and everything, and he tries it on and goes, oh, he looks like a summer guy. And I think about that, like, I've like thought about that at Pride, like seeing like the leather guys walk by, and I'm like, oh, summer guys.
Oh my God. It's so funny. Like it's great. Every man in these shows is just kind of dumb in their own way. Neither are particularly adept at anything. Neither are even celebrated for any of these things. Like, there's a lack of lionizing that I find really fun.
Right.
Like, sometimes it is just nice to watch a stupid, like, men be stupid. Like, it feels like Jackass in that way, where it's like, there's no harm here. It's just heartwarming in a way.
Yeah. And like, we're talking about the Machos here, but each of them has like Peggy, Hill, and Leela. Leela?
Yeah.
Like, they ultimately have to kind of save the day or like problem solve, because the guys are on their like one track that they have to be on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I was thinking about that as well. The women in the shows are always the fixer-uppers, you know what I mean? Always like cleaning up a mess, always super smart and super capable, which in a lot of ways is very refreshing. Like, I love her. Like, she's a great character, super fun. Like, Peggy and Luann,
yes,
the niece that lives with them, they're so...
Oh my God, Brittany Murphy,
brilliant.
right?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So brilliant. And I feel like normally I would find it frustrating that there's not a lot of character progression for the men or the women in terms of like gender. Like, I don't know, we talked about this a little bit in the Daddies episode too, but in a lot of those examples, there was like an incentive for the man to change his way and become a different person, or become and value different things. Whereas in an animated series, it doesn't really matter because nothing matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that said, I think with that, like the way that men and women are different in these series, it's also interesting to see that there is no super macho, like loving super machismo expressions of masculinity.
Right.
Like, those are almost always the butt of the joke.
Right.
Which is really interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, the only one I can think of is Zap Brannigan in Futurama, who's like a Captain Kirk character. And he's an idiot. And like, that's like number one, he's a fool. Number two, he like gets around, or he wishes he did.
Yes, exactly. It's like every single season of this show is just consistently very unmacho. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, every kind of man that we see is dumb or incapable or, I don't know, unlikable. It's sometimes, obviously, given the time period and whatever, like, it does venture into like harmful areas sometimes, but most of the time it's like it's just fun to watch a show where everybody's a flop, like, especially the men.
Yeah.
Which I find really refreshing in a way. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about princess films. It's like, men who are cartoons are either everything or nothing. These are like super defined archetypes, stereotypes of men who are like the mad scientist, the whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, Prince Eric has black hair.
When I think of like the sitcoms of this era, like, there's definitely a lot of these sort of, it's like a trope of the beta male with like a super hot wife. And I think with live action for an adult audience, there is like a drive to, like, you have to be on their side or not, or else it's like really upsetting, right?
No, totally.
With these characters, like, especially these creators, everything Mike Judge does is about like these kind of people who are, they're in our world, they're in our society, but they're just a little bit off. They're not on the podium.
Yes. Correct.
And that's what obviously, like, I loved about Daria, and that's what people like about Beavis and Butthead. And with Homer Simpson and, Fry on Futurama, they're there, and they're not bright, but the world is still moving. And like,
they don't have to be.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice.
Totally.
I mean, again, is that afforded to like women in storytelling a lot of the time? Not really.
Yeah.
But when thinking about masculinity in kind of a vacuum, I like it. I mean, on that, These two shows, I was like thinking a lot about them when, brushing up and rereading and rewatching portions for this episode. But I think ultimately what endears me to them so much is that beyond there being just kind of a stupidity about every single man in both of these shows, like to varying degrees and in different ways, there is like such a tenderness and love for its dumbass men that is very important to me. I don't know, it keeps it from being cruel, like you were mentioning. And I remember in particular, King of the Hill was a huge formative text for me for like transition, especially Bobby Hill, which is so funny.
You and those blonde boys. The blonde boys are always...
Exactly. It's interesting, like representation is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think it's so complex and so many conversations about it currently are just kind of brain dead. And of course, I think that our media landscape lacks authentic representation of many different groups of people, like across many identities. But for me, like one of the first big moments of like, oh fuck, like this feels good to see on screen was not of like a trans person. It was of fucking Bobby Hill. Like I was like, it's so cool to see that this like sensitive, like goofy, curious boy is, of course, like he's played for laughs in the show and he's hilarious and whatever, but he is not always the butt of the joke. He has agency.
Yeah.
He is ultimately loved by his extremely conservative parents. Like, I don't know. And just the refrain that Hank Hill says, like that boy ain't right thing. I'm like, that's, God, it just like, it resonates so much in like a very joyful way. You know what I mean? Like
that boy ain't right on a t-shirt.
Yeah. On a tattoo, to be honest. Yeah.
And it's, I remembering that Hank's father is sort of this like, he's the most ornery, like type of like in my day men were men kind of a guy, right?
Exactly.
And that Hank is even like, Hank then it seems so much softer and gentler by that comparison. And that Bobby is allowed to be like strange and his parents are always going to have his back.
Yeah.
That's really like, that's not something you necessarily expect from that time period.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, even with Futurama, it's like a chosen family story. Getting an insanely gay read on Futurama. But like these portrayals of masculinity, specifically like watching clips today, I was like, oh, I remember watching these when I was like 13 and thinking this is hilarious and really relating to it, but not understanding why.
Yeah.
So both very foundational, like masculine texts for me. There was a lot of kind of divine masculinity in it, I feel, which is like something I think about a lot. The levity and the joy and literally like the stupidity, but like in a fun way of masculinity is, I don't know, just really what I get out of both of these in a very gender affirming way.
I mentioned it, but it's stuck in my head a little bit, the infidelity piece that is like woven into one of our secondary characters, but like the fact that Hank Hill, like he has a narrow urethra, right? This has come up, and that he could only like it was very difficult to conceive, right? And that they could only have one child. And I remembered like being young and watching that and being like, this is like really, it's like TMI for a cartoon, like it's so involved to get into. But I think that the fact that that's our hero, our main character who sells propane and propane accessories and has been like desexualized in this kind of way, he is the king of the hill.
Yeah.
And he's our hero.
He is. You said it best. I'm like, let's wrap it up there. That's so true. I don't know. It's just very sweet. There's a lot of like tenderness, I think, underneath all of it in both shows. And I don't know if that's intentional for the viewer to project a kind of love and care onto any of these people, or if we should just be laughing at how stupid everybody is. But I'm going to choose to be optimistic.
Are you going to get a Bobby Hill tattoo, like to mirror your Tom of Finland tattoo?
A bust of Bobby Hill on the other leg. Maybe so. When prepping, I was like, damn, I should get Bobby Hill tattoo.
I'd love
I'll
it.
crowdsource if anybody has any ideas.
I like that. That just, this is something I miss a little bit about like the fact that you could just turn on the TV and have reruns pop up, because
Absolutely.
these two were always in that where I was like, I'm happy if they're on TV.
Yes.
But I haven't ever made the effort to like go back and rewatch either, and I totally would.
Futurama is a fun one, especially just because there's kind of a lovely series arc to the whole thing. It's really sweet. Big fan.
Well, we will be right back to share this season's version of the Freakout Macho of the Week.
Hey, FFR listeners. Are you signed up to our Patreon yet? If you're not, you're missing out on special content made exclusively for our patrons. And if you're not a patron, that means that you're not helping me get paid. And if you're not helping me get paid, that means my good little dog Griffin isn't getting the good treats. Head on over to patreon.com/femfreak. That's FEMFREQ. Become a patron to get great content and also to make sure my dog Griffin gets the good treats. Oh, and you get the good treats as well, which in your case would be quality discussions about media.
Now it's time to talk about the macho that's been thrilling us, moving us, upsetting us, or infuriating us this past week. AC, what's on your mind?
Oh my goodness. Happy Cannes season, everyone. I know we're all keeping tabs on the hottest festival of the season.
To all who observe.
Exactly. And a very happy Cannes to you. With that, I mean, I needed to do this because this whole episode I've been like, I really actually don't like TV and I don't like animation. I just love cinema. So that's me protesting. This week's Macho of the Week. Welcome to the damn hall, Martin Scorsese.
Like, it's not that it's weird because he's not macho. It's just I would never have guessed. If you'd given me 250 names, like, pick these are all gonna be in Macho of the Week, I wouldn't have guessed.
And that's why he's the perfect pick. Love Martin Scorsese. I would consider myself a Scorgazy. If you're out there, let me know. His new film, Killers of the Flower Moon, an adaptation of the book of the same name, is premiering out of competition in Cannes next month. I am very excited about that film. If you listened to the Patreon exclusive last week, I talked about my dad's love for alt country. Almost all of those artists are in Killers of the Flower Moon, which is crazy. So I'm super excited for that. And I also just wanted to shout out, this is hilarious, talking about Martin Scorsese, and I'm going to do him some lip service, give him a little shout out. But I've been thinking a lot and reading and getting into his World Cinema Project, which is a nonprofit devoted to the preservation and restoration of neglected world cinema, which I am a huge preservation nerd. I care a lot about preserving cinema. And so he's inspirational to me for that.
That's what the forgotten 2020 movie I Care a Lot was about. It was about AC and preservation of cinema.
Exactly. And I killed an old person to do it.
Okay, so love that. I do love that. I don't know a lot about Scorsese. I've seen a lot of his movies, and I know that he good, but I could tell you what Quentin Tarantino is into other than feet. But Martin Scorsese, I couldn't have told you and he has this vested interest in protecting this legacy, and that's very cool.
Yeah, any of these big filmmakers that kind of care about film preservation, and especially Scorsese, who does a lot of work with filmmakers of color and women filmmakers and stuff, I just very much admire. Also, I think Scorsese is kind of one of the macho makers, you know what I mean?
Right.
All of his films, name a macho that is not in his films. It's crazy.
Do you have a favorite Scorsese macho?
Okay. Off the dome today, right now, Paul Newman in The Color of Money. Oh, damn. He's so fine. It's crazy. Great film about, ultimately tops and bottoms. Well, but I also love Sandra Bernhard in The King of Comedy. I think she is genius in that movie.
Amazing. I mean, I think it's so basic, but I've watched Taxi Driver so many times, and it's so confronting. Like, I don't think that movie lets up, like, even after all these years. And also that one has a great Scorsese cameo in it.
Yeah. Yes.
Does he do that in a lot of his movies?
Not to my knowledge. Maybe he does, and I am just like not paying attention as hard as I should, but not to my knowledge.
Scorsese, a great eyebrow haver.
Yes.
He is like one of those great like, again, just aesthetics, but he's like, you could see the like Don Hirschfeld. I'm bringing it back to animation, like the Don Hirschfeld caricature of him, and everyone would know who it is. Like, he has a great look, he has a great aesthetic. He worked with, I always love that he worked with like Thelma Schoonmaker for his whole career, and she said like, those movies aren't violent until I get to them.
Oh, that's incredible.
One of my favorite like craft person, like creative quotes.
Oh, that's so cool. He's the best. I mean, he's a genius. I love him a lot. A special shout out to Paul Schrader. You will not be inducted into this hall, but I see you. I stand with you. Keep posting on Facebook, King. We love it.
Oh, thank you for that. And Marty, you're in good company.
It's like deeply random. When you were like, that's insane, I'm like, how? And now I'm considering it. I'm like, it is a little
It's just like, what's he going to talk about with ER Fight Master?
Oh my God. What did they talk about? Oh my God. Oh, wow. Thinking about all these people in a room is so exciting to me.
It truly is.
Oh shit. Our Macho of the Week should have been Optimus Prime. Some kind of cartoon. And he recently accepted that award at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards.
I haven't been able to stop thinking about the fact that he got the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. I watched his speech several times.
It's a little bit beautiful, I'm not gonna lie.
Like, all right, you brought it up, we're going there. Like, this is for free. Everyone, you're welcome. I saw the trailer for Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
It looks... Okay, I won't say anything. Continue.
What the like? I don't get at all what's happening with Transformers. I've seen several Transformers movies. I got on the Transformers ride, and I was like, "Am I a bad guy? Am I a good guy?" I have no idea what's happening in a Transformers.
The Resistance can mean whatever you want.
Like, you know, in his Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, Lifetime Achievement Awards acceptance speech, Optimus Prime was like, "To all Autobots, humans, and Maximals." I was like, what the fuck is a Maximal? Like, how deep in the lore?
Like, TM.
But in this, okay, here's what I didn't understand about Rise of the Beasts trailer. Two things. One is...
why it was so fucking cool.
Like, okay, you're a car and you're going to be a big guy. That's a Transformer. I'm there with you. But, like, why are you going to be a gorilla that doesn't look like... You're not going to blend in to being, like, a gorilla. You look like a big machine.
Something about that gorilla took my breath away. I was like, this is incredible. Like, I, like, need to see this movie.
But then the gorilla transforms into just, like, a big guy. And, like, what is a gorilla if not a big guy? Like, why wasn't he just a big guy the whole time?
Jane Goodall has been saying this.
And then...
does he transform back into a car? Or not at all?
Unsure. Like, that actually is why I'm going to see the movie.
Ostensibly, he's a Maximal.
I guess I want to know, because at least the Power Rangers, like, they turned into Robo, and then they would put themselves together and be, like, a saber-toothed tiger or something.
Transform, one might say.
Yeah. Okay, but here's my real problem with the trailer, and we will come back to this in the Patreon bonus, which is... there's a girl, and she's, like, freaked out because there's Transformers about. And she's like, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real. And she looks over, and this, like, Transformer with boobs is like, what up? And, like, gives her, like, a peace sign. And then she goes,
hey, girly.
She goes, okay, I guess it's real. I'm like, what? Like, first of all, that CG looks like shit. And secondly, like, it's not like she went over and, like, touched you. Like, you still are, like, having a hallucination, I guess.
Yeah, I want you as the lead young woman in this movie.
I just want to be like, the fuck? And poor
Why does my transformer have tits? Oh,
poor Anthony Ramos is along for the ride of the beasts.
oh my
Whatever.
God.
I mean, we are seeing this, obviously.
Yes, I was going to say we should see it together, actually. That's fine.
Oh my God. On that note, what if Martin Scorsese and Optimus Prime are Machos of the Week? We do have a macho deficit because of an incident from earlier in the season. So
honestly, if we're voting, I'll let him in.
let's do it. Let's do
A little one on Marty's shoulder.
Let it be. So it is written.
So it shall be.
Oh my God. Thank you, listeners, for bearing with our insanity. This season of Feminist Frequency Radio presents Machos Fully Loaded.
I am AC Lamberty. You can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd at AC Lamberty and check out the list of movies that we've discussed on this season.
I'm Kat Spada. I'm on Twitter at cat_EX_machina. Make sure you're following Feminist Frequency on all the socials at FemFreak. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, stick around for the bonus episode because we both have watched Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and we are going to talk about it, and we're going to do spoilers and all of that.
Yes. If you like our show, help other people find it by subscribing, rating, and commenting on your favorite podcast app.
Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.